our first performer, or performers, the writer is Sean Urquhart from Glasgow, who's published an e-book, an e-novel called Lust and Longing in New York, which you can find on all good booksellers and those that don't pay their tax. And he's published 2 collections as well, one called 14 Cages and one called Finn Brit. And he's going to be collaborating this evening with Joe Eldridge, who's a kind of, I don't know how you describe yourself, Joe, kind of digital multimedia, exactly, that's the words on the tip of my tongue. So, big round of applause for Sean and Joe.
Thank you very much. Most of this part here of mine is sponsored by Tramadol because I've got a terrible mouth abscess, so apologies if I sort of drift off in a reverie. Blame it on Grunwald and Son, from whatever laboratory he's created in, whatever nefarious laboratory. So I'm going to do a couple of pieces. The first one is called Range Anxiety Beneath the Biker Bridge, and it was written specifically for tonight and specifically dedicated to a fine friend of mine who passed away a couple of years ago and who lived not a vodka bottle throw from here. And it's also dedicated to everybody that's here tonight and the Star and Shadow, which was one of the first clubs I was ever in Newcastle. So it's a sort of a 3 for the price of 1 tribute, and also to Joe, who's lovingly prepared a wonderful soundtrack as well. So I hope you can bear this as much as I can bear the pain I'm under at the moment. Okay. On Stepney Bank, the bare elements of the so-called knowledge economy and the lie of regeneration are stillborn with the dreams of long-dead workers, whose wraith figures are sometimes visible when one has had too many budget malts at the Ship Inn. The Cluny pays basic lip service in its functional industrial cladding to the bottling of the self-same spirits that are breathed out on the walk with the past under Biker Bridge in the wee small hours. There's many a country mile from the graveyards of the Knights Templar by Loch Winnoch or the plague pits of the Clyde, but the self-same revenants are carbon atoms as the wind gets up and one has to pull a collar up to an asthmatic gullet beneath the almost digital hush of traffic, a good suicide 100 feet above. The building better churches, smoked glass frontage offices and the promise of salvation, and the arches where classic cars are fixed up, and those weird adjacent attempts at bringing the rural into urban with horse stables sit rather uneasily as my guts heave on the way up the bank. I can feel Nick Montgomery's advice nestle in an unconscious orison to a jealous god or old gods, his fist still slamming on the floor of St Anne's Close in anger at the vicissitudes of Tory and New Labour mouthed muted TV visions of a hopeless and doomed future. Social security Armageddon as I trotted off to buy his fags and prescription vodka with a muttered secular prayer of my own. Oh, that he were here now to see what is in front of us all. The bold Nick, a lightning rod for bullshit in a world where friends' backs are readily stabbed. And at the apex, just next to the Star and Shadow, the doors of St Dominic's Catholic Club seem permanently shut to us heathen half-cut Paddy Scots. I can feel some Talisker bile on the pavement as I've spewed it up outside the Tanners, as the winter never really leaves the body in these hours between 2 and 6 a.m, even in this dubious springtime. There's nary a body in sight on the streets as I perambulate on the tarmac surf down towards the first sight of the time, occluded by slashes of upward mobility flats and the arc of the Millennium Sage architect's loony dream as our viewing field takes in the crashed metallic beetle of Norman Foster's Sage, whose concerts were always well beyond my deadbeat shrouds for pockets. The screech of an urban fox jars and gives voice to a common anger and bitterness to those who foist housing schemes on punters, knowing that they'll never live there, nor ever connect with their unknown audience of invisible prospective tenants. As the fog crawls from the time, a phantom of a lost romance, an almost drunken kiss of rain as I descend to the upper reaches of the great river, with the juries in on the Gateside poor relative side, and Baltic mocking the overly proud Geordies and their micro rules of entitlement to the moniker. I could very easily believe that a square mile or so is that fabled Geordie territory. Everything outside is sullied by coast or competing urban sprawl, or failing that some dubious connection with Sunderland. The once co-op building houses the intent of town planners and economic visionary loonies, and the Malmaison's dubious odd fur coat nae knickers cladding. We still descend right to the water's edge, breathing in the last of the post-industrial pollution, and a hip flask is proffered as a toast to those art experiments flowing down towards the hip square mile of the London city-state. Analgesic whiskey courses down two necks, one of them hallucinatory, and the spreading warmth takes the edge off the musings for a moment or two, off of the self-defeating mantra of the Caledonian cringe. That romantic phantom in the last bite of the Talisker is enough to set off a gag reflex, but not enough to remove the moon on the water confidence of nature herself. And that is the crux. The almost hallucinated angels under the Biker Bridge no longer sup with me, and I'm in exile in my own town now. An odd affair, punctuated with visitations to this city that has begun to burrow its way into my subconscious. Even now, as these words leap from the tongue of the bruised lover, the pugilist in sheep's tailoring, I realise that these words of comfort are still being whispered from beneath that edifice, despite the passage of time and life. I am walking alone with the memories, trying to keep his words alive and grimly focused on the fragile and febrile present. But then the perhaps maniacal laughter hits me on that instant level, the gut level, the one that counts, those moments of magic that we often dissolve into. Fragile they may be, but eternal at this time in the morning they seem to be. Chick Murray's ghosted, stolen lines from Malik McGrory, Greenock via Glasgow en route to the Tyne, with the wraith voices of Bobby Thompson and Cahill Coughlin, their words often punctuating a forbidding afternoon bleeding into evening. And the words are now hushed. A historical synaptic fragment, one to cherish as the 3 a.m. skiing of clouds part, and hint, just hint, at some kind of human electricity in the void between us, the living, and him, the presumed dead. That was the first part. The second part is taken from the novel that was mentioned by Adam, and it was illustrated very lovingly by Mr. Ross Lang over there. And this is called A Magical Sigil Found on a Beer Mat in Smith's Bar on 44th and 8th. My insanity is madder than yours. I'm more extreme, angrier, more passionate, warlike, gentler, empathic, more prolific, caring, full of hatred and capable of creation and destruction than you, and by this token capable of godlike greatness. Unwise words, scrawled in a beer mat, either totally marginalised or simply mad. Mad in the old sense of the word, not in the clinical sense that everybody seems to throw into conversation. driven mad by an indifferent populace, a partner, a family dynamic, or organically badly wired? Too many chemicals, or not enough? A febrile brain, an epitaph, or epigram, worthy of mad old Nietzsche at the very least, in his syphilitic days anyway. Right, so there I was, having a final pint, skint beyond belief, lacking any ambition or even thinking about how the day would end itself. And I saw the item lying in the beer and spirit slurry on the deck. A desultory end. The nameless barman grimaced as he viewed me, gimlet eyes burrowing into my guts. He could spot an outsider. 100 to 1 shot throwing dice with an invisible deity. He went back to his paper. I reread the sentence. 3:30 a.m. is a lonely time. I was alone with a dispossessed son of Sligo, a fellow exile in New York City. A stallion sigh piqued his interest. He poured me a consolation scotch and nodded at the beer mat. I'll wrote that. Not long dead. You never said what you do, fella. What's the crack? I rubbed roomy jet-lagged eyes and tried to form a sentence. Well, it's hard to put any words. It's part of the heritage. I mean, it's unwanted advice. I mean, what do I know? I know as much as you do about me as I do. The rail-thin Sligo lad placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder and poured another. One thing's for sure. You found a home here, lad. He returned to his paper and I reread Al's script. Perhaps it was old Egyptian magic come to do me a favour. Either way, I was 2 drinks up. Welcome to a glimpse of utopia via a Glasgow lens. Finally, I'd like to finish up with just a selection of poems that I wrote with my dear departed friend Nick Montgomery. Nick was in a band called Micro Disney years ago, and when I met him he was kind of down in his luck, as I was as well, and what kept us sane and away for the bevy and stuff like that, the life sweeteners, was throwing together these poems, and they're all written first take, so this is, you know, literally the closest to jazz as you're going to get from a punk like Nick, you know, and he would kill me for saying that. So here's a selection of poems that we wrote, and they were called Beard because we both had beards. It was all quite literal. So this first one's called A Bind. Come walk with me. Dizzy with degrees. Spirals of control, straight back, nasty, brutish queue for the dole. Not particularly holy. I'm not the Pope, but God has left me all alone. I'm not a monk, but I'm in a cell and I'm banged up for my own safety, or so they say. Welcome to my private hell. If this is hell, then where to next? We've buggered everyone, and burnt our boats as well. The sex has been awful lately, what can I say? I've tried and failed in every way, what can I say? They banished limbo, and now I find that I am blind like Milton in his cave. I'm in a state, I'm in a bind, the last waltz, no wave, just drowning. This one's called Trees. They sway, they sweat and green. The sky is blue, but I am dead. They sway, they sweat, those trees. I calm the voices in my head. I drink, I sink into the fog of self-despair. I disbelieve all that I see before the old oak tree. You shake, you rattle, and you roll. You clutch of ancient trees. You lose your leaves, you turn brown red. This is the season of the dead. And again, the end of the bottle, the leavings. Those tea leaves and that wine deposit depress me more than I can say. Joy Division albums echo the words that I cannot say. I heard that Ian Curtis hanged himself, but my lack of faith and my gold unreason has made my human race have feet of clay. It's a very brief bit of humour called Carpets, or what passes for it. I met a carpet in the pub. She had a very strange pallor. I told her that I loved her. She simply laughed and rolled away. I met my carpet in a Berber tent. She reverted to Axminster. No burqa for this childish bride. She'd rather be a spinster. It's a funny thing, this carpet, love. This carpet bore me, grew me. This carpet is the source of life. The carpet is my mum, my life. It's a rather nice carpet down here, actually. I think I nicked it off my Auntie Mary. This one's called Delectable. I'm rattling through these, forgive me. The Scots disease, the Irish curse, the Welsh unease, and the English crush. The love of alcohol. The spell was cast when I was young. I saw my father in a hearse, contaminated by the deadly brew. Contaminated. Your strange pen has worked wonders where the NHS fell down, and your brain is full of chemicals and towns. This one's called the Valium period. Yellow pills in my pocket, yellow pills in my head, yellow pills. 10 years with a pocket full of Valium, 10 years lashed to the mast, 10 years without pity. 10 years where there is no tomorrow, 10 years, 10 fucking years, 10 years with no bloody past. I drowned and I fell and I cashed my last prescription, but the doctor never said a thing. They left me with addiction. So it's called drowning in concrete. It's difficult to leave the schemes when you have no rudder. It's difficult to leave the schemes and bury your own brother. There was a day when the rain fell down, it was a total deluge. My head caved in, my world caved in forever. I hit the road, running, there was no other way. The schemes had sucked my marrow, the schemes had sucked my soul. The schemes had taken everything, the ultimate own goal. This next one's called Misty Sun. Misty sun, what do you see as you clamber from the clouds? Misty sun, where will you be when winter comes around? Misty sun, can you see the golden bough? Oh misty sun, is my orison allowed? Misty sun, do you ever age and see the changing seasons? Oh misty sun, is this the age of reason or just another sunny day? I'm going to finish now with a very quick one, and this is called Onus. We lose our names in childhood games. We blindfold and we fuck. We despair and we declare our lack of any luck. Have we any future? Have we any past? I was born to be here, and I might just be the last of the good old-fashioned ranters. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much to Joe Eldridge. Quick round of applause. Thank you very much. Thanks to Adam as well.